Priya was the kind of woman people respected but never really knew. At 32 years old, she had built a career as an architect in Mumbai that most people could only dream about. Her designs were featured in magazines. Her clients trusted her completely. Her bosses praised her work. But if you asked anyone in her office about her personal life, they would just shake their heads. Nobody knew. She arrived at the office exactly at 9 every morning. She worked through lunch at her desk. She left at 7 in the evening, sometimes later. She never joined the team for birthday celebrations or Friday evening drinks. When colleagues tried to make small talk, she would give short, polite answers and return to her work. Not rude, just distant, always distant. Her desk was perfectly organized. No family photos, no personal items, just her laptop. A single plant that somehow survived despite her lack of attention, and neat stacks of project files. Everything in its place. Everything under control. That was how Priya lived her entire life. People in the office had their theories about her. Some thought she was just naturally cold. Others believed she was probably going through something difficult. A few assumed she simply considered herself too good for everyone else. They were all wrong. But Priya never bothered to correct them. Let them think whatever they wanted. It was easier that way. The truth was more complicated and more painful. Priya had not always been this way. There was a time when she laughed easily, when she trusted people, when she believed in love and friendship and all those beautiful things that connect humans to each other. But life had taught her hard lessons. Her parents had divorced when she was 12. Not a quiet, peaceful separation, but a bitter war that lasted years. She remembered the screaming matches, the accusations, the way her mother cried every night while her father stayed out late. She remembered being used as a messenger between two people who had once loved each other but now only knew how to hurt. That was her first lesson about love. It ends. And when it ends, it destroys everything around it. Then, in her 20s, she had fallen in love herself. His name was Rahul. And for 3 years, she had believed he was different. She had opened her heart completely. Shared her dreams, her fears, her vulnerable places. She had trusted him with parts of herself she had never shown anyone else. And then she discovered he had been seeing someone else for almost a year. The betrayal did not just break her heart. It broke something deeper. Her ability to trust. Her willingness to be vulnerable. Her belief that letting someone in was worth the risk. After that, Priya had made a decision. She would never give anyone that power over her again. She would build walls so high and so strong that no one could ever hurt her. And she had succeeded. For 7 years now, she had lived inside those walls. Safe. Protected. Alone. Her apartment reflected this choice perfectly. It was beautiful, of course. She was an architect, after all. High ceilings. Large windows. Expensive furniture. But it felt like a hotel room, not a home. No photographs on the walls. No memories scattered around. No warmth. Just clean lines and empty spaces. Her evenings followed the same pattern. She would come home, heat up whatever simple meal she had prepared on Sunday, eat while checking work emails, and then either work more or watch documentaries until she felt tired enough to sleep. Weekends were for grocery shopping, cleaning her already clean apartment, and visiting museums alone. She preferred the contemporary art section where she could stand in front of abstract paintings and feel nothing, which was exactly what she wanted. Then one Monday morning, everything began to change, though she did not realize it yet. Her boss called a team meeting to introduce a new structural engineer who would be working on their upcoming projects. His name was Arjun, and when he walked into the conference room, Priya barely glanced up from her notes. He was average height, with glasses and a quiet way of moving. Nothing particularly striking about him at first glance. He introduced himself briefly, mentioning he had worked in Bangalore before moving to Mumbai. His voice was calm and steady. He did not try to impress anyone with big stories or loud confidence. He simply stated the facts and sat down. Over the next few days, Priya noticed him around the office. He had been given a desk near hers, which she found slightly annoying. She preferred her corner of the office to be quiet. But Arjun was not disruptive. In fact, he was remarkably quiet. He worked steadily, spoke only when necessary, and never tried to force conversation. What struck Priya, though she would not admit it even to herself, was that he never tried to engage her the way others did. Most new employees, after hearing about her reputation for being cold, either avoided her completely or tried too hard to break through her walls. They would ask too many personal questions or make awkward jokes trying to get her to smile. Arjun did neither. He simply existed in her space without demanding anything from her. On his third day, she stayed late working on a difficult design problem. Around 8 in the evening, she realized Arjun was also still there, quietly working at his desk. He glanced up, met her eyes briefly, and gave a small nod before returning to his work. No questions about why she was there so late. No comments about her dedication, just a simple acknowledgement of shared space and shared commitment to work. Something about that moment felt different to Priya, though she could not explain why. In the following weeks, Arjun became a constant presence in Priya's carefully controlled world. But unlike others who had tried and failed to get close to her, he never seemed to be trying at all. He just existed alongside her, and somehow that made all the difference. Priya began noticing small things about him. The way he held his pen when he was thinking deeply about a problem. How he always took the stairs instead of the elevator. The fact that he brought lunch from home every day in a simple steel container. These observations annoyed her at first. She did not want to notice anyone. Noticing meant caring, even just a little. And caring was dangerous. But Arjun made it impossible not to notice because he noticed everything about everyone around him. Not in an intrusive way, but in a manner that showed he actually paid attention to the world. When their colleague Mira mentioned she had a headache, Arjun quietly placed a strip of pain medication on her desk without saying anything. When the office boy struggled with a heavy box, Arjun was there helping before anyone else even looked up. And he noticed things about Priya too, though he never mentioned them directly. She realized this one morning when she found a cup of chai on her desk, still steaming hot, made exactly the way she liked it with extra ginger and less sugar. She looked around confused. Everyone else was busy with their work. Then she saw Arjun at his desk, focused on his computer screen, giving no indication that he had done anything unusual. She walked over to his desk. "Did you make this chai for me?" He looked up and smiled slightly. "The tea stall downstairs makes it well. I got one for myself, and thought you might like one too. You always hold your coffee cup with both hands like you are trying to warm yourself up. Thought you might prefer something actually warm." The observation startled her. She did hold her coffee cup with both hands, but she had never realized anyone noticed such a small detail. She did not know what to say, so she simply said, "Thank you," and walked back to her desk. This became a pattern. Not every day, but occasionally, chai would appear on her desk. Always when she seemed particularly tired or stressed. Always without any expectation of gratitude or conversation. Just a simple act of kindness that expected nothing in return. Priya found herself confused by Arjun. She had built her entire adult life on the understanding that people wanted something from you. They were nice because they needed a favor. They paid attention because they expected attention back. They gave because they wanted to receive. But Arjun did not seem to operate on that system. He gave without keeping score. He helped without advertising it. He noticed, without making it weird. One evening, about 2 months after Arjun joined the firm, Priya was working late as usual. Most of the office had emptied out. She was deep into reviewing structural calculations when she heard a chair scrape nearby. She looked up to find Arjun sitting at his desk, though she thought he had left hours ago. "You are still here?" she asked, surprised that she had initiated conversation. "Had some calculations to finish," he replied simply. Then, after a pause, he added, "You stay late often." It was not a question or a judgment, just an observation. Priya felt her automatic defenses rising. She prepared her usual response about dedication and deadlines, but something about the quiet office and Arjun's gentle tone made her answer differently. "I do not mind working late. There is nothing waiting for me at home anyway. She regretted the words as soon as they left her mouth. Too honest. Too revealing. She waited for the inevitable follow-up questions, or worse, the pity. But Arjun simply nodded as if she had said the most normal thing in the world. I understand that, he said quietly. Sometimes the office feels more alive than an empty apartment. There was something in his voice, a depth of understanding that came from experience, not sympathy. Priya found herself curious, which was unusual for her. She almost asked him about his life but stopped herself. Curiosity led to connection, and connection led to vulnerability. She returned to her work, but the silence between them felt different now. Less empty, more comfortable. As weeks passed, Priya noticed other things about Arjun. He never participated in office gossip. When colleagues complained about clients or criticized each other, he simply listened without adding to the negativity. He treated everyone with the same quiet respect, from the CEO to the cleaning staff. There was an integrity to him that was rare. She also noticed his sadness. He hid it well, but she saw it sometimes in the way he stared out the window during lunch, his food forgotten, or how he would pause in the middle of working and take a deep breath as if steadying himself against some invisible weight. She recognized it because she carried her own weight the same way. One Friday evening, when most of the office was celebrating someone's promotion at a nearby restaurant, Priya and Arjun were both still working. The office felt particularly empty and quiet. Without planning to, Priya spoke into the silence. Why did you move to Mumbai from Bangalore? Arjun looked up, surprised by the question. For a moment, she thought he would not answer. Then he said simply, My mother passed away last year. She was sick for a long time. Bangalore had too many memories. I needed to start somewhere new. The honesty of his answer took Priya's breath away. No pretense. No hiding behind polite explanations. Just truth. Offered quietly. She understood then that Arjun's kindness was not naivety. It came from someone who had experienced real pain and chosen not to let it make him hard. I am sorry about your mother, she said, and meant it. Thank you, he replied. Then, gently, he added, We all carry something, don't we? The question is whether we carry it alone, or allow someone to walk beside us. Those words stayed with Priya long after she went home that night. For the first time in years, she wondered if her walls were protecting her, or just keeping her prisoner. 3 months after Arjun joined the firm, Priya faced the kind of crisis that tests everything you have built. She was leading a major project for one of Mumbai's biggest real estate developers. The client was demanding, but the commission was substantial, and would establish her reputation at an even higher level. Everything had been going smoothly until it wasn't. The problem appeared on a Tuesday morning. One of the junior architects on her team had made an error in the structural calculations. Not a huge mistake, but significant enough that if the building had been constructed according to those plans, there could have been serious problems down the line. Worse, the plans had already been submitted to the client and the municipal authorities. As the lead architect, the responsibility fell on Priya. It did not matter that someone else had made the error. Her name was on the project. Her reputation was on the line. And this particular client was known for being unforgiving. One mistake, and he would not only pull the project but ensure that word spread throughout the industry. Years of perfect work could be destroyed by one error. Priya went into crisis management mode. She informed her boss, contacted the client's office, and started working on revised calculations immediately. The client demanded a meeting for Friday, giving her just 3 days to fix everything and prepare a presentation explaining what had happened and how she would ensure it never happened again. For 3 days, Priya barely slept. She worked 18, 19 hours each day, reviewing every calculation, checking every measurement, rebuilding the structural plans from foundation up. She sent the junior architect home, unable to bear seeing his guilty face. This was her problem to fix now. By Thursday night, she had the technical work done. The new plans were flawless, but she still had to prepare the presentation. And, even harder, figure out how to explain this to a client known for accepting no excuses. She stayed at the office past midnight, her eyes burning from staring at her computer screen, her head pounding from stress and lack of sleep. The office was completely empty now, or so she thought. She had her head in her hands, trying to fight back tears of frustration and fear. When she heard footsteps, she looked up to find Arjun walking toward her desk with 2 cups of tea. "Everyone else left hours ago," he said, placing 1 cup in front of her. "Thought you might need this." Priya stared at the tea, and something inside her just broke. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was 3 months of Arjun's quiet kindness, slowly wearing down her defenses. Whatever the reason, tears started falling down her face, and she could not stop them. She felt embarrassed and angry at herself for showing such weakness. She tried to wipe her face quickly, to regain control, but the tears kept coming. Years of holding everything in, of being strong and perfect and untouchable, suddenly felt like too much weight to carry. Arjun did not panic or look uncomfortable. He did not offer false reassurance or try to fix her crying. He simply pulled a chair over, sat down beside her, and waited. His presence was calm and steady, and somehow that made it safe for her to fall apart. When the tears finally slowed, Priya felt drained but also strangely lighter. She took a shaky breath and said, "I am sorry. I do not usually do that. Do not apologize for being human." Arjun said gently, "Tell me what is happening." "All of it." So she did. She told him about the error, about the client, about how 3 days of work might not be enough to save everything she had built. But then, without planning to, she told him more. She told him about the constant pressure she put on herself to be perfect, because anything less felt like proving she was worthless. She told him about feeling like she was always one mistake away from everyone seeing that she was not as good as they thought. She told him about the exhaustion of keeping walls up all the time, of never letting anyone see her struggle or doubt or fear. Arjun listened to every word without interrupting. His attention was complete and focused, and Priya realized she had never been listened to like this before. Not evaluated, or judged, or fixed. Just heard. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then Arjun spoke, his voice thoughtful and kind. "You know what I see when I look at your work? Brilliance. Real talent. But you also carry everything alone, as if asking for help or showing struggle makes you weak. It doesn't. It makes you human. I cannot afford to be weak." Priya said quietly. "The world does not forgive women for being weak." "Maybe," Arjun acknowledged, "but there is a difference between weakness and honesty. You are not weak. You are exhausted from pretending you have to be perfect. You are allowed to struggle and still be strong. You are allowed to make mistakes and still be brilliant. You are allowed to need help and still be capable." His words hit something deep inside Priya. She had spent so many years believing that showing any vulnerability was dangerous, that needing others made her less than. But Arjun was offering a different possibility, that maybe real strength was not about being perfect, but about being real. "I do not know how to be any other way," she admitted. "You do not have to figure it all out tonight," Arjun said gently. "But maybe you can start by letting me help you with this presentation. 2 people working together can see things one person alone might miss." Priya's first instinct was to refuse. She had never worked collaboratively like this. She had never let anyone see her work when it was messy and unfinished. But looking at Arjun's honest face, his offer without any hidden agenda, she found herself nodding. They worked side by side for the next 4 hours. Arjun reviewed her calculations and confirmed they were perfect. Then, he helped her prepare the presentation, offering suggestions without taking over. He was collaborative without being controlling. He supported without diminishing. Around 4 in the morning, the presentation was ready. Priya felt as prepared as she could be. But more than that, she felt something unfamiliar. She felt like she had not gone through this crisis completely alone. As they packed up to finally go home, Arjun turned to her and said something that would stay with her forever. "You are going to handle that meeting beautifully tomorrow. But whatever happens, it does not define your worth. Your value is not measured by your perfection. It exists because you exist. Priya did not know how to respond to that. So she simply said, "Thank you. For staying. For helping. For everything." Arjun smiled. That is what friends do. Friends. The word felt strange and warm and terrifying all at once. Priya had not had a real friend in years. She had not let anyone close enough for friendship, but somehow, quietly and without her permission, Arjun had become exactly that. The meeting with the client went better than Priya had dared to hope. She presented the error honestly, explained the corrected plans thoroughly, and demonstrated the additional safety checks she had implemented. The client was not happy, but he respected her transparency and the quality of her solution. The project continued, and Priya's reputation remained intact, but something had shifted inside her that could not shift back. That night of breaking down in front of Arjun had cracked something open in her carefully constructed walls. She found herself thinking about what he had said, about carrying things alone, about the difference between weakness and honesty, about friendship. In the days following the crisis, Priya noticed herself acting differently. When Arjun asked how she was doing, she actually told him, instead of offering her standard, "fine" response. When he invited her to join him for lunch at the small restaurant down the street, she surprised herself by saying yes. They fell into an easy rhythm. Lunch together twice a week. Occasional evening chai when they both worked late. Comfortable silences mixed with genuine conversation. Arjun never pushed for more than Priya was ready to give, but he also created space for her to step into when she felt ready. Slowly, carefully, Priya began sharing pieces of herself. Small things at first. She told him about her favorite music, old Bollywood songs from the 70s and 80s that her grandmother used to play. She mentioned her childhood dream of designing affordable housing for people who could not usually afford good architecture. She admitted that she found most social gatherings exhausting and preferred quiet evenings. Arjun received each revelation with genuine interest and without judgment. He asked questions that showed he was really listening, not just waiting for his turn to talk, and he shared pieces of himself too, but never as a competition or exchange, just as natural offerings of trust. He told her about his mother, about how she had been sick for 5 years before she passed, how he had spent those years caring for her, watching her slowly fade, feeling helpless despite doing everything he could. He talked about the guilt he felt when she finally died, not just grief but also relief that her suffering had ended, and then guilt about feeling relief. "I thought that made me a terrible person," he admitted one evening over chai. "Feeling relieved when someone you love dies. It makes you human," Priya said, echoing his words back to him. Love and relief can exist together. Grief is never simple. She saw his eyes shine with unshed tears, and she understood that he had probably never said those words out loud before. That he had carried that guilt alone, just like she carried so much alone. In that moment, they were mirrors for each other, reflecting back not judgment but understanding. As weeks turned into months, Priya realized that Arjun was teaching her something important about intimacy. Not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through small, consistent acts of care. He remembered things she mentioned in passing. When she told him once that she hated her birthday because it reminded her of her parents' fights, he never brought it up again. But on her birthday, she found her favorite book on her desk. A novel she had mentioned loving years ago, but had lost her copy. No card, no explanation, just the book. When she worked through lunch obsessively, he would place food near her without commenting on her habits. When she finally told him the full story of her ex-boyfriend's betrayal, he did not try to fix her pain or promise he was different from other men. He simply sat with her in her hurt and said, "That must have been devastating. I am sorry someone treated you that way." There was no pressure from him to move faster or be different than who she was. He seemed to understand that healing was not linear, that trust was built in tiny increments, that sometimes people just needed to be seen and accepted exactly as they were. One Saturday afternoon, Priya did something she had not done in years. She called Arjun and asked if he wanted to meet for coffee. Not work-related, not convenient because they were already at the office, just intentionally choosing to spend time together. It felt risky and vulnerable, but also exciting in a way she had almost forgotten was possible. They met at a small cafe in Bandra, overlooking the sea. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Books they loved, places they wanted to visit, childhood memories both sweet and painful. Priya found herself laughing, really laughing, at Arjun's story about accidentally dyeing his entire laundry load pink in college. As the sun set over the ocean, painting everything in shades of orange and pink, Arjun said something that made Priya's breath catch. "You know what I have learned from knowing you? That walls people build are not meant to keep everyone out forever. They are meant to protect until the person feels safe enough to open a door." "You are opening doors, Priya. That takes tremendous courage." Priya felt tears prick her eyes, but this time they were not tears of pain or stress. They were tears of recognition, of being truly seen by another person, of realizing that someone had paid enough attention to notice not just her walls but the slow, scary process of beginning to lower them. "You make it feel safe," she said quietly. "To open those doors. That is your gift, Arjun. You do not demand entry. You just stand outside patiently until someone is ready to invite you in." The friendship between them deepened in ways that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with soul connection. They became each other's safe person. The one you call when something good happens. The one you text when you read something funny. The one whose presence makes hard days more bearable. Priya noticed other changes in herself too. She smiled more at work. She said yes to a few social invitations, discovering that not all gatherings were terrible. She even joined a few colleagues for lunch occasionally. Her apartment started gaining small personal touches. A photograph from a work trip. A painting she bought at a street market. Small signs that someone actually lived there. But the biggest change was internal. Priya was learning that vulnerability was not weakness. That needing people did not make you less strong. That letting someone touch your soul, really see the deepest parts of you, was not dangerous if that person approached with respect and care. Arjun had shown her that intimacy could be safe. That connection could be healing. That being fully seen by another person could be the most beautiful experience rather than the most terrifying one. She started working on a personal project, designing plans for affordable housing in partnership with a non-profit organization. It was the dream she had set aside years ago, believing it was too idealistic. But talking with Arjun had reminded her why she became an architect in the first place. Not for money or recognition, but to create spaces where people could live with dignity and comfort. Arjun helped her with the structural aspects, and they spent evenings working on the project together. It felt meaningful in a way her expensive commercial projects never quite had. She was reconnecting with a part of herself she thought she had lost forever. 6 months after Arjun had walked into her office, Priya looked at her life and barely recognized it. Not because everything had changed dramatically from the outside, but because everything had changed fundamentally from the inside. She was still the same talented architect, still professional and dedicated. But she was no longer performing perfection. She was simply being herself, with all the complexity and imperfection that entailed. The walls she had built so carefully had not disappeared completely. They probably never would. Years of pain and protection do not vanish overnight. But now, those walls had doors and windows that let light in, and standing on the other side of those doors, patient and steady, was Arjun. People at work noticed the change in her too. She was warmer in meetings, more collaborative. She laughed at jokes and asked colleagues about their families. Some people commented on it, saying things like, "You seem different lately," with curiosity and slight surprise. Priya did not try to explain. How could she tell them that one quiet man had shown her it was safe to be human again? One evening, Priya and Arjun were working together on the affordable housing project in her apartment. It was the first time she had invited him to her personal space, which felt significant. He had looked around appreciatively at the changes, noticing the small touches that made it feel more like a home. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, Then Priya put down her pencil and looked at him directly. Something had been building in her for weeks, a need to put words to what was happening between them, to acknowledge the transformation he had facilitated. "Arjun," she said, and he looked up from his drawings. "I need to tell you something. You changed my life." He set down his pencil too, giving her his full attention. His expression was gentle and open, waiting for her to continue. "I spent 7 years building walls around myself," she continued, her voice steady but emotional. "I convinced myself I was safer alone. That needing people made me weak. That vulnerability was dangerous. I had plenty of reasons for feeling that way. Good reasons. Painful reasons. But I was not really living. I was just existing inside a fortress of my own making." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Arjun waited patiently, never rushing her. "Then you came along. And you did something no one else had ever dared to do. You did not try to tear down my walls or convince me they were wrong. You did not treat my defenses as obstacles to overcome. You just existed beside me with such consistent kindness, such patient understanding, that eventually I wanted to open the doors myself." Tears were sliding down her face now, but she kept going. "You touched my soul, Arjun. Not by forcing your way in, but by making it safe enough for me to let you in. You showed me that intimacy could be gentle, that being seen completely did not have to be terrifying, that I could be vulnerable and still be strong." Arjun's eyes were shining too. He reached across the table and took her hand, holding it gently. "Priya," he said softly, "can I tell you something? You did the hard work. I just stood beside you while you found your own courage. Free. Finally. But you made it possible," she insisted. "You saw me. Really saw me. Including all the broken parts, and you never turned away. You never tried to fix me. You just accepted me exactly as I was, and somehow, that acceptance gave me the strength to heal myself." "We healed each other," Arjun said quietly. "You think you were the only one building walls? I came to Mumbai running from grief, convinced that loving someone meant losing them eventually. I was not living either. I was just going through motions, staying busy so I would not have to feel too much." He squeezed her hand gently. "But knowing you reminded me that connection is worth the risk. That opening your heart to another person, even though it might eventually hurt, is what makes us fully alive. You gave me that gift, just as much as I gave it to you." They sat in silence for a moment, hands joined across the table, two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. Not romance, though there was love. Not fixing, though there was healing. Just genuine connection between two souls who had been brave enough to be truly seen. "What happens now?" Priya asked. And she was not entirely sure what she was asking. "Where does this relationship go? How do we define what we are to each other?" Arjun smiled. That gentle smile that had become so familiar and precious to her. "Now we keep doing what we have been doing. We show up for each other. We keep opening doors. We build something together, whatever that looks like. There is no rush, no pressure. We just keep being honest and present with each other." Priya nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over her. She did not need definitions or promises right now. She just needed this. The quiet certainty of being truly known by another person and knowing them in return. In the weeks that followed, Priya continued her journey of opening up to life. She organized a reunion with old college friends she had lost touch with. She called her mother and had an honest conversation about their complicated relationship for the first time in years. She volunteered at a shelter, connecting with her community in ways she had avoided for too long. The affordable housing project moved forward, gaining support from the nonprofit and interest from potential funders. Priya found herself feeling excited about her work in a way she had not experienced since her early 20s. She was creating something meaningful, and doing it in partnership with someone who believed in the same vision. One Sunday morning, Priya woke up in her apartment and realized she felt happy. Not the busy satisfaction of completing a project, or the relief of avoiding disaster. Just simple, genuine happiness. The kind that comes from living authentically, from being connected to people and purpose, from allowing yourself to be vulnerable and discovering it leads not to pain but to richness. She texted Arjun, "Coffee at our usual place?" He replied within minutes, "Always. See you in 30. As Priya got ready, she caught her reflection in the mirror and paused. The woman looking back at her was the same person physically, but something in her eyes was different. Less guarded. More alive. More real. She thought about how she had believed for so many years that protecting herself meant building walls. That strength meant needing no one. That safety came from keeping people out. Arjun had taught her something different. Real strength was allowing yourself to be vulnerable with someone worthy of that vulnerability. Real safety came not from isolation but from connection with people who treated your heart with care. Real protection was not about walls but about wisdom in choosing who you let in. As she walked to meet Arjun, Priya felt grateful. Not just for him, though he had been the catalyst, but grateful for her own courage in slowly opening those doors, in taking the risk to trust again, in choosing connection over isolation, even when it felt scary. She saw Arjun waiting outside the cafe, 2 cups of chai already in his hands, because he knew she would want hers the moment she arrived. He smiled when he saw her. That warm, genuine smile that had become her safe harbor. "Ready for a new day?" he asked, handing her the chai. "Ready for whatever comes," she replied honestly. They walked together along the beach, talking and laughing, 2 people who had dared to touch each other's souls and found healing in that connection. The walls that had once defined Priya's life were still there in some ways. She had learned that healing was not about becoming someone completely different. It was about integration, about keeping the wisdom from your pain while releasing the fear that kept you stuck. She would always be someone who valued her privacy and personal space. She would always be cautious about who she let close. But now she knew the difference between healthy boundaries and prison walls. She knew that the right person would respect her pace and never make her feel wrong for needing time. The right person would touch her soul gently, with respect and patience, understanding that some hearts need careful handling because they have been broken before. Arjun had been that person. Not by being perfect, but by being real. Not by having all the answers, but by being willing to sit with questions. Not by rescuing her, but by walking beside her while she found her own strength. And in the process, they had both discovered something beautiful. That intimacy was not about losing yourself in another person. It was about being so fully yourself that you could share that self with someone else. That love, in whatever form it took, was not about completing each other but about witnessing each other completely. That the bravest thing you could do was not protect your heart from ever being hurt again, but open it carefully to someone who had earned the privilege of being let in. As they sat on the beach watching the waves, Priya felt at peace in a way she had not known was possible. She had spent so many years believing that survival meant staying closed off. Now she understood that real living, the kind that made life worth experiencing, required the courage to stay open even after being hurt. To try again. To trust again. To believe that not everyone would handle your heart carelessly just because someone once did. "Thank you," she said suddenly, turning to Arjun. "For everything. For seeing me. For waiting patiently. For teaching me that being vulnerable could be beautiful instead of terrifying." Arjun looked at her with those kind eyes that had first made her feel safe. "Thank you for opening the doors. For trusting me with the real you. For showing me that connection is always worth the risk." They sat together in comfortable silence. 2 souls who had touched each other deeply and been transformed by that touch. Not through force or pressure, but through the gentle, persistent power of acceptance, understanding, and genuine care. That was the gift they had given each other. Permission to be fully human, with all the mess and beauty that entailed. And in that permission, they had both found their way back to really living.